Welcome back to Elements of Art and our unit on space. I'm Caroline and I am excited. Today we get to talk about how to create space in your artwork. While adding stars or planets would add the theme of space, showing the art element of space is a bit different. We mentioned in the last lesson that space involves how things look closer or farther away and how depth can be seen in a picture. In this lesson, we are going to go over 4 different techniques for showing space: overlapping, size variation, detailing, and color temperature. Before we get into the intricacies of it all, take a look at this painting. It is titled The First Sowing. Can you see how there is a foreground, a middle ground, and a background in this work? What has the artist done to show this? Think for a moment and reflect in your lesson notes. All 4 of the techniques for creating space that we are going to discuss today can actually be found in this artwork. We will return to it and I'll help you identify them at the end of the lesson. Let's start with a technique that is very prominent in this painting. Take a look. Can you see each and every apple in the artwork in its entirety? You can't, can you? Why not? What has the artist done that prevents this? What about in this artwork? Again, you will notice that some parts of the subject matter are not fully visible. The girl blocks part of the cow that is behind her. The objects in the compositions are layered in such a way that those in the front obscure the objects behind them. If you were to put one hand in front of the other, could you see both fully? Not unless you were see-through. By having things in front of and behind other things, you achieve a feeling of space. This is called overlapping, the technique of creating depth by overlapping objects. I want you to try to imagine a field of trees. If not a single tree overlapped another, would you be able to perceive the distance as well as if they did overlap? Let's look at visual examples to see what I mean. Do you see the difference? When there is no overlapping, the image looks flat. With overlapping, the image has some depth. Let's move on to another technique. Take a glance at this image and think about what the artist has done to show space. Take a look at the figures. Can you tell who is farthest away and who is closest to the viewer? The artist has manipulated the scale or size of elements in this artwork to suggest depth. Where in the art do you see this? The figures in the front are much larger than those in the distance, aren't they? What about in this image? Do you see any size differences here? Notice this baby penguin in the front is way larger than the adult penguin that is meant to be shown farther away. The size variation shows you their location in the space of the painting. Have you ever closed one eye and held up your finger and thumb to gauge the size of something? If not, try it now. You'll notice that when something is closer to you, it often appears larger, and when it is farther away, it seems smaller. Foreshortening, as seen in this image, is another way to use size. The hand is larger than the head, which shows us that it is further forward. By using the size variation technique, artists enhance the illusion of depth by manipulating object sizes. Our next technique can be seen in this image. What do you see in this artwork that provides the illusion of distance? What do you notice about the clarity of the picture from bottom to top? Is there a difference? What about in this artwork? How does it differ from left to right? You might see that the areas that are meant to be in the front or foreground are more in focus, and the areas that are supposed to be farther away are less detailed. If you are someone who is nearsighted and wears glasses, this idea makes a lot of sense when you don't have them on. The things that are closer look clear, and the things that are farther away look more fuzzy. Consider how different a leaf looks when it is close enough to touch versus how it appears if it is on a tree across a field. The one that is touchable shows detail, veins, splotches, etc. The one across the field is just a dot of green. When this idea is used intentionally by an artist, it is the technique of detailing, where artists use variations in detail to suggest what is nearer or farther in the viewing plane. This is our last technique to discuss. Take a look at this artwork. Observe the differences you see in color in this artwork of the bottom of the painting versus the top of the painting. Specifically, what do you notice about the color temperature? It seems cooler as you view it from bottom to top, getting more blue as you go, right? A funny thing happens with color and how we see it spatially. To our eyes, warm colors advance and cool colors recede. This is often called atmospheric perspective. Have you ever heard Purple Mountain's Majesty? Have you ever seen a mountain that was actually purple? Those song lyrics actually refer to how our eyes see things with a tinge of cool color when they are in the distance. When this idea is used intentionally by an artist, it is the technique of color, where artists use cool hues to push objects back and warm hues to pull objects forward. Let's return to our original image and look for where each of our 4 techniques are used: overlapping, size variation, detailing, and color temperature. Analyze this image again for a moment and see if you can spot where these techniques are used. Pause the video and take your time. Starting off with overlapping, I first noticed the collection of items in the foreground. It is easy to see what is placed in front. You could also say that the figures overlap the background as their bodies obscure the views behind them. Next, where I most easily notice size is in the comparison of the size of the farmer and the horse. The horse is much smaller in the painting, telling our brains that it must be far, far into the distance. Now, check out the details. Do you see how the farmer figure has lots of detail? You can see the wrinkles in his clothes and his lush mustache, while the character in the middle ground is much less defined, and the figure with the horse is nothing more than a small shape. Lastly, I see color used in the choice of the dirt color in the foreground being a very warm brown, transitioning to having a blue-green tinge as the dirt path extends into the distance. Did you see the use of any of the space creating techniques elsewhere in the painting? There are many other instances that you may have noticed. So, after the discussion of the techniques, do you think you have a favorite that you might try to use in your work? There are some opportunities to test them out in the PDF. Have fun creating space, and remember, art is all around you.
Hey, hey.